Welcome to IndieCapitol. I'm Pamela Nash, and this is Lori Nelson Lee. She's here to talk about her film, Unraveled. So where are you at in the process right now?
Well, we finished production earlier this year, back in April, and started submitting a couple places. Kind of noticed after we had submitted that the sound wasn't exactly where we wanted it. So went through a second edit session, and now we're back out to submitting again. So we're definitely in the submission status right now.
So this film deals with some pretty serious themes about the danger of keeping secrets in a family.
Yeah.
What is your inspiration?
It was this story. You know, the funny thing is, I'd write stories a lot of times for kids, with either children are like my main characters, or the story somehow usually revolves around them. So when I started writing this story, it was actually about a 13-year-old boy who whose mom was killed on his birthday. Actually, he was 12, turning 13 on his birthday, and it was going to be about how he not only has to overcome the death, but he's now also going through puberty at the same time. So, but as I started writing the story, it was like the voice of the father who had been left behind with these 3 kids, of which one was, months old, that kind of just took the voice in my head as I was writing. And it just became more interesting because, you know, I thought I was going to have enough trouble trying to speak the voice of a teenage boy, and now I'm having to speak the voice of a grown man. So, you know, it kind of went through several renditions before we ended up with what you finally saw.
Were you surprised as you were writing it about you're kind of saying no good will come if you keep secrets. I mean, this is pretty strongly like secrets are very bad. Was that intentional?
I don't know if it was so much intentional. I know that, you know, a lot of times family secrets, things that happen that can affect more than one person, at some point will show its face. And then not only are you now having to go back and explain about what happened, but you have to fix all of the things that have now been broken because of it. So I don't know if it was intentional, or again, the story was just coming out that way. I had no idea where I was going with it once the male voice, the adult male voice, took over in my writing. I was actually just as anxious to see how it would end as the few people that I had reading the draft for me when I started.
You know what's so interesting to me about filmmaking? You do have a stated purpose of wanting to provide messages to children and positive views of family, but you really have no idea how they're going to turn out.
Right. Right, because I mean, really, this film, even in my mind, is still, I set out, the goal was to do something that was family oriented, that you could sit down and watch with a child. I would be, you know, curious to see what they, you know, would think after watching it, if they get the message, because it is such a grown-up message. But it's something that they have to deal with too when they are in that family. You know, like I said, it affects everyone. Now these young girls and the little baby, they now have a brother that they don't, you know, that they didn't know existed. Well, that's gonna affect them in some manner. So, you know, just, I guess the moral is, let's try not to tell too many of those stories. Just try to keep the secrets to a minimum.
And let's take a look at a clip from Unraveled.
Thanks, Joe.
Drink it slow now. Drink it slow.
Hey. I know it's hard to believe.
I just can't figure it out. One minute, I'm celebrating my daughter's birthday. And the next, I'm holding my wife my dead wife in my arms.
Any news on the guy yet?
No. I still don't know who he is.
What guy?
There was this guy there. I didn't see him at first, but I could tell that they knew each other. Next thing I know, she walks into oncoming traffic. And then he took off.
Right. What got your interest about, I'm going to make movies that show positive family values? What made you choose that?
I don't know, because I watch all kinds of movies, and I don't really want to set out to kind of pigeonhole myself as any particular type of writer, but it just I don't know, I'm very family oriented, and I think that there's so much out there that adults can watch, and not quite as much that children can or should, I say, be watching. So I'd like to just, put a few projects out there that would be something that I would want to watch with my kids. And then if there's other people out there that feel the same way, then great. But, in the end, the stories that I write, I really write to satisfy my inner need to tell that story.
And when you're looking at these positive impacts, how small or how large of a community? Are you looking at, I want the whole world to see this, or I want my local community, or I want the Black community? Like, what's your focus audience-wise?
When initially it's, I want my parents to see this. I hope my husband loves it. Can I watch this with my niece and nephew? And initially, it's really within my own home. And then again, if other people see it and can appreciate it, because art is very subjective, and it's really appreciated at different levels by depending on the person who's viewing it. So if I set out to attempt to please large sums of the population, I could end up not pleasing myself in the end. So it really starts off with me, and can I show my face around my family after it's said and done, and then hopefully everybody else loves it.
We were talking a little bit before the show got started about like the local film community. And one thing I noticed that you do that almost nobody does is you give everybody that's worked on your project their credit.
Oh, yeah.
On your website, you can see every single person's name. You put everything on IMDb. And why do you think that you're kind of alone in like a lot of people just don't
do that?
Bother doing that?
I didn't know I was alone.
Yeah, what makes you do that and go to that extra mile to give them credit?
I feel like I owe it to them, and I really do try to do my best to make sure that it's updated. You bring up IMDb. A lot of times I would at least ask them, set your page up, and then I can link to it. Sometimes if they don't do it, I'll just go ahead and submit it anyway if I have the time. But I think that when you're working in the indie circuit, a lot of we were talking earlier off camera that a lot of what you do with people, you're doing really out of the love of the art. They're not really charging you, or you're not really paying them. So at the very least, I like to be able to give people their due credit. Give them credit. Hopefully, it helps them to build their reel and resume as much as I'm using it to build mine. So.
Well, it seems like a really valuable thing to do. Like, I'm looking through your website before the show, and I'm thinking, if I'd want to work on one of your projects because I could then link to it and tell everybody, and I wonder, like, I'm sure people who work on my projects would like their names on it. I'm going to go, I'm adding you guys' names next weekend. This weekend I'm busy, but next weekend onto my website. Because that little thing that you did that took you some time, like, that has a huge impact.
I honestly didn't realize it had such an impact. I really just felt like it was my duty, excuse me, to offer at least that. That's free, give them their recognition, and hopefully they'll come back.
And I was going to ask you that. Do you think that the kind of environment you create with things like giving people their credit gets you repeat people?
I do work with a lot of the same people, and then sometimes with each project, I kind of want to experience working with other people. I also do a lot of work on other people's sets to see how they work, to figure out, okay, maybe they might be doing something that works that, I've been doing it differently and it hasn't really been working. So I learn from others, but for the most part, I think that I like to say that I create an environment in which they want to come back. I've been told that, I'm a little bit of a tiger on set, so, but you're when you're indie, you wear a lot of hats, and one of those, unfortunately, that I also wear is that of producer. And so I'm thinking the entire time, my creative mind is going, we really want to do another take. We really want to do another take. And then the producer's going, we need to stay on time and on budget.
Yeah.
And, I have my strengths and weaknesses in both of those areas. But for the most part, yeah, I think I can invite the same people to come back, and I've never had anybody tell me no.
And you've done really well in festivals, and you've got a lot of awards and recognition. Tell us about some of that.
Well, yeah, I do a lot of festivals. I kind of feel two different ways about festivals. I think that I do it more so for, again, to give other people recognition. They spend their time and, give their effort in doing it, and I would like for as many people as possible to be able to see them on screen. But because I do my projects for myself, I don't do a project and my goal is it's got to get in festivals. It's got to get in festivals, because I know in the end, a lot of festivals, not all of them, but a lot of them have their own politics involved. So if I, sat around waiting for festivals to let me in every door, I'd be doing this for absolutely nothing. So I think they have their pros and their cons, and you just can't get too sucked up in the whole festival circuit. Do your project, do it the best that you can, under your ability and your budget. Put it out into the world and see what the world brings back.
So how would you define a successful project? Like you've completed Unraveled. It's been out there. How do you decide that it's successful?
When I can look at it and not cringe. When I can throw it on the DVD in my house and watch it without going, oh God, I wish I had done that differently. Then I deem it a success. If people give me kudos for it, then that's like icing on the cake. If I never hear anything about it, as long as I'm happy with it, then I can sleep at night. And then once a project is done, that's really when I bury it and just kind of, okay, I'm already moving on to the next project. By the time I'm finding out that the last one that I worked on is still hitting circuits, still hitting different festivals, my mind has already moved on to the next project. So I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So I kind of just submit to a bunch of places, and then you know how they yourself, they come up at different times. It could be 6 months later and you completely forgot, and you'll go, oh yeah, I forgot I submitted to that.
All right, we have to just keep it real for 1 second. Did you ever strategically pick the festivals based on what times they were coming out?
Yes, because we usually finish up in April, the beginning of April at that. So any festivals that you had to submit to prior to that, we obviously are knocked out of. Anything that's coming up too soon after that means that the fee is going to be way too high. I budget, I got to be budget conscious. So I try to look for the ones that I still have enough time that allows me to submit and, pay a smaller, I'd much rather pay, like a $35 fee versus $85 fee to get into a festival.
And do you build into your budget when you're budgeting for the film an amount of money for
festivals? Yes.
I do that too.
Yeah.
And I look at their calendar and I say to myself, well, I don't want to wait till February to find out. I'll forget about the film by then. So, okay, only stuff that'll notify me by December.
No, I haven't gone that far yet. I haven't gone that far yet. But it's pretty much a date and numbers game when it comes to the festivals. Whoever's still open, still accepting, and still within budget, that's who we would submit to.
What would you say was like the best thing you learned about the whole festival process?
The best thing that I learned would probably be the politics behind it. If I did not understand how political some of it could be, My feelings might be a little bit more hurt than they usually are, you know, but it helps me a lot to be able to just brush it off and be like, okay, no sweat. Well, who's next?
Yeah. Let's talk about your other project, When Life Gives You Shoestrings.
That one was a pretty fun project to do. Unraveled took so much. Everybody, you know, on set, in front of the camera, behind the camera, it was filled with so much drama that we would just be so drained after 12 hours of shooting that. But Shoestrings was the complete opposite. It was a lot of fun. Once again, it was a story that kind of changed while it was in motion. Actually pretty interesting, at least to me. I sat down to write this screenplay. It was supposed to be about a little girl whose imaginary friend was going to give business advice to her father. So I'm writing, and a lot of times I'll like have the TV on, I'm in bed and I'm writing, the television's on, but it's on mute, and I'm typing, you know, and so I'm on like page 3, and I look up and there's a commercial, and I'm going, oh, that looks interesting. So I hadn't seen, you know, Eddie Murphy in anything in a while, so I, you know, turned the mute on and I'm listening, and I'm going, wow, that's the movie I'm writing right now. So I scratched it for like a week. I was just kind of depressed. I was like, I don't even know where I'm going with this now, because that was the idea. And my husband went, well, on the bright side, at least you know it was a good enough screenplay that Nickelodeon would have bought it.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll take that one. But now what am I going to do? I had written a children's book, and the imaginary friend was supposed to be the character from the children's book. So it was really like a marketing campaign for me. I'm trying to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. And so I don't know, after a week to 2 weeks of just sulking that this movie, that someone else had done my movie, I came up with the idea of, well, I wonder if a grown man can have an imaginary friend. So I started doing research on previous movies that had male grown men that had imaginary friends, and came across an old 1950s movie called Harvey about a big old white rabbit. And it was genius because you never saw the rabbit in the entire movie. And I was just so excited. I was like, this is so awesome. And at first when I plopped it in and it was like black and white, I was like, oh no, it was that old, it's black and white. But it was, from the moment the movie started to the moment it ended, I was just on the edge of my seat watching this movie, and I said, you know, I think I could get an audience to buy this, that a grown man would have an imaginary friend. And so that's what I did. We kind of went that route and pushed the business side. The imaginary friend wasn't so much giving business advice as much as she was trying to help him get through something that he was going through to get him focused and back on track with life. So she was almost like an imaginary life coach.
And you're doing a film about a grown man with an imaginary friend. Mm-hmm. How do you get the audience to buy in without automatically assuming he's hallucinating, he's crazy?
Well, I didn't really think about that. I was really going, again, for an audience of children. So I'm thinking, you know, they love little big fluffy furry things, and you know, it's like a life-size doll is really what she was, because we had an actual mascot. We had a human in this mascot that was acting out as the character of Hillary. So, you know, again, we were really thinking about the kids more so than, okay, are we going to have an audience full of 40-year-olds who are going to buy this? So we just set out to be funny. We ended up, in the end, it was more like a dramedy than a straight comedy because of the adult, the whole, with him losing his job and he's got a baby on the way, and you know, they just bought this new house, and you know, how are we going to pay the bills? That part of it kind of made it a little brought it up as far as the drama. But in the end, it was still a project that I had kids in mind when it was created.
So we're going to take a look at a clip.
I gotta go home and tell my wife, my pregnant wife, my pregnant black wife, that I just lost my job.
It's not even noon. Who does layoffs in the morning?
Son, that's what they call life.
Hillary's big business adventure. You see Hillary in our bedroom?
You're a 35-year-old black man with no job, a new house, a baby on the way, and a new imaginary friend with big pink kicks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh man, my life is getting better and better every day.
I just lost my job and I got people depending on me not to starve. Yo, I'm lost, so I drop to my knees and I'm asking God, please lift this from me so that I can succeed. Yo, I need to stay focused, keep it in motion, and hopefully one.
So let me ask you a little bit about your background. I know that before you started doing films, you were writing children's stories. Mm-hmm. And what came right before that? What led you in to start to write children's stories?
My niece was born. My mother is actually has always been the writer, storyteller in the family. And when my niece was born, she had been toying around with the idea of writing her first children's book. And I think she was just kind of scared. A lot of people have this dream, but they're not, they kind of need somebody to push them to get out there and do it. So I, offered to go through the process with her and found that, because I'd done a lot of writing as a child, but I never shared it. I always kept it to myself. Didn't really look at it as a hobby or a talent, a gift or anything. It was just something that I did. So, to help my mom get out there and kind of connect with her creative side, I decided to go through the process with her. So when we were done, we both had books. And I really enjoyed it. And I just remember when we went to the printer to pick up when they were finally done, and we went and picked up the copies, and it was just absolutely amazing. It's like my books are being printed next to some really well-known books. I'm sitting, and my books are sitting right next to Fancy Nancy and Bad Dog Marley, and it was just like absolutely insane. And I was just like, oh, this is awesome. And I don't think it really connected until I went on a national tour in 2008, and it kind of spilled over to 2009. And just going to these different cities and meeting with some of the parents and the kids who would talk about how much they liked the book. I never forget this one little girl in LA came up to me and was trying to tell me how, she had an idea to start a limousine business. And I'm going, I don't even think I knew what a limousine was when I was like 10. But, she's telling me how the book, kind of inspires her and all that. And I was like, wow, it's, people like it. It's not just me and my mom that like it, So I think that's really what opened it up for me to share the stories that I came up with. From there, I don't remember how, but somehow I received an email for a Nickelodeon spec script competition. I didn't even know what a spec script was. I was still learning the publishing business and that type of writing. And all of a sudden, I'm have something in front of me and it's talking about a completely different type of writing. But it intrigued me. So I did some research and found out what a spec script was. I wrote a spec script for a show that was on the air at the time, which I can't even think the name of I can't remember. It had Christina Applegate in it. But I wrote a spec script for that show, and it became a finalist for the competition that I submitted it to. So I ended up going out to LA to meet with some Nickelodeon executives, which was a lot of fun and very educational. I met a lot of other writers, a lot of talented people in that work session that we had, and it that's when I first, I think, started to migrate, not away from, because I still do children's books, still write children's stories, but that's when when I started to include this whole other aspect of writing that was sitting over here.
And that also touches on kind of a touchy subject in the DC film community, which is, and the minute I wrote something good, I left and I moved to LA, and bye DC.
Well, I didn't move to LA. I definitely didn't do that. But that's what the competition was for. It was an invitation to come meet them, and they weren't coming out to DC to meet with me. So
I get it.
So yeah, we did, and I can completely understand that argument too. And I was just speaking to somebody about that not even a month ago. it's just really hard. It's like you want to be in DC, you want to stay here. There's just not as much going on and not as much opportunity, not as many classes and things of that nature. And I think that's really what probably sends people west, not necessarily because they want to go, just because if you're looking for an abundance of opportunities and training, LA, New York, and now even some Atlanta, but DC hasn't hit that yet.
Yeah,
but we're sticking it out.
Why does Atlanta get on the list and not DC?
I know, but that's where a lot of the production is being done now. I guess it's cheaper, in Atlanta. I'm not really sure. They haven't done the research on all the specifics, but it's coming up a lot, as well as Austin, Texas. So, but it is a short list of places, and unfortunately, DC is not on that list yet.
So I'm going to ask you one last question here, and then we're going to wrap it up. You're really focused on getting messages out to children and guiding them. Do you ever worry that you might not even know the answer to something, but yet you're telling children?
No, my husband will tell you that. No, I'm a know-it-all. I know everything. No, I don't worry about that. It's for me again. It's the story that's inside of me that is looking for life, and so I'm gonna tell it and hope that some people latch on, and if not, I'll put it in my own little personal library at home, and we'll watch it with some popcorn on family night.
So your little niece and nephew is going to be like, don't ever lie, because if you do, you will die and ruin your family. And you'll be all right with that.
I don't know if that'll be, I would say, stop being so dramatic.
This has been Lori Nelson Lee on IndieCapitol. I'm Pamela Nash, and we'll see you next time.